Related papers 58 to 59. The visit with the magistrate of absolutey town. There is a fine line between subjectivism's absoluteness and the living of subjectivism in the world. That line has grown into the great wall that surrounds Metadelphia and its little suburb absolutey. To reach the peak of Dashan, we can't stop forever in metaphysics. Speaking to Lee, Mary, and the soldier, Han said, "You must visit the exalted How Boo How, magistrate of absolutey. He is the chief absolutist. He is in non-charge of no one, because there is no one to be in charge of, he says, even though he is the magistrate of absolutey. To be absolute is to be absolute." Han continued, "To be absolute is to begin with God, stay with God, and never leave the consciousness of God. Yes, we must be absolute, but there is more for us to do than that." "That is what you do," Mary said. "That is also what you advocate we do. So why do you want us to visit the magistrate of absolutey?" Old Han answered, "The absolutists often call himself God. How can I be anything else, he will say, since there is nothing but God in all existence?" "He is right, isn't he?" Lee asked. "Go and visit the magistrate, How Boo How. Ask him every question you wish. He will answer. Then, when your visit is over, come and tell me whether these teachings at the pond are the same or different. If you conclude they are different, tell me how they are different." When the three arrived at the magistrate's office, the soldier put a question to him quickly. "Are you God?" he asked. "Since there is nothing but God, how could I be anything else?" said the absolutist. "There is nothing but being, ever. God is all." "Then what am I to call you?" the soldier asked. "People call me Magistrate How Boo How." "Our friend Han tells us that God is all in all, magistrate." "I say exactly the same," the man in the golden headdress answered quickly and confidently. "I know this about truth. Being is being the being that being is being." The words tripped from his tongue like hammer blows. "And am I being also?" the soldier asked. "Yes, you are," the magistrate answered, smiling broadly. "What do you think Jesus meant when he said that God was greater than he?" Mary asked. "My dear Mary, Jesus said, 'My Father and I are one,'" the man with the golden headdress replied. "But he added that his Father was greater. Perhaps he meant that in the way a mathematician might say that the plane and the sphere are one, but the sphere is greater than the plane?" "I do not think about dual matters, such as greater and lesser," said the magistrate. "I remain in my metaphysical bliss, where I and God are the same one. What I see is God, and if it isn't God, then it doesn't exist and has no reality. That is that. Your friend Han talks about simplicity. I agree with that simplicity, and you can too. I keep things as simple as being the being that God is being, and I stay there." "Is this room filled with the smells of medicine and old age part of your metaphysical bliss?" the soldier asked bluntly. "I never see age nor smell medicine," the magistrate said with an air of self-righteousness, eyes closed, head lifted toward the ceiling. Then, as if he sensed the soldier's thought, he added, "I see no ceiling. There are no ceilings in mind. There are no age in mind. There is no one who needs medicine in mind. All is infinite mind and its most infinite manifestations. I know this, I am this, and I remain this eternally. Ah, yes, the magistrate of absolutely is straight and forthright with words. Yes, yes, said Mary in agreement. You use the word manifestation. Is this room my manifestation or yours? If you see anything that isn't perfect just as it is, that is your problem, not God's, the magistrate said. Mary smiled. Oh, I agree with much of that. Nothing but God is happening, and that is precisely what lets us see good in everything, even in illusion. There isn't an illusion in mind, my dear, How Boo How intoned contradictory from under his golden headband. The illusion isn't real because God has nothing to do with illusion. The magistrate was beaming, even if the ceiling wasn't. If there is no illusion in mind, what is the illusion I see? Mary asked. You don't see an illusion, my dear. You just think you do, said the magistrate. Is my thinking that I see an illusion also an illusion? Yes. Haven't you contradicted yourself, Lee, the soldier, and Mary all asked simultaneously? I have done no such thing. Mine doesn't contradict itself, said the absolutist. Then what did you do? Asked the soldier. What do you mean, what did I do? If God didn't do it, it wasn't done, the magistrate said from beneath his great headdress. Oh my, Mary whispered. Words can be so intimidating, can't they? In the name of metaphysics, everything can be affirmed or denied at will. Fortunately, that doesn't change the truth. Speak up, said How Boo How. I didn't hear you. Mind here, said the soldier. It is the meat man, whose ears are solid and unhearing. Yes, said the magistrate, but I am not the meat man. I am infinitely more than that. Yes, we are more than the physical appearing, said Mary. But what is the physical appearing? Nothing, absolutely nothing at all. And you children must understand, it is that view of the meat man's nothingness that heals the meat man. Ah, so, Lee asked. Then it is our knowledge that the illusion is an illusion that allows us to see the illusion more nearly as it is. Absolutely, said the magistrate. But if it is an illusion that doesn't exist, what difference does it make what it looks like or doesn't look like? Asked the soldier. That is the zen of it, my young argumentative friends. That is the mystery. What is the mystery? The soldier asked. That is for me to know and for you to determine, the magistrate said. A servant entered the room, bringing the magistrate's meal, and the first meeting ended. The three young people sat in the courtyard discussing their conversation with How Boo How. It seems to me he is saying exactly what Han is saying at the pond, said the soldier. Oh, no, he isn't, Mary said. There are gigantic differences. Han is saying more. What more is he saying? Asked the soldier. The second visit. The talk with the magistrate of absolutey resumed. What of the hungry, unhappy people here in absolutey? Asked the soldier. I do not see hungry, unhappy people, the magistrate smiled. I see only love and beauty here, and that is all there is to see. Do you see me? Asked Mary. Why, dear, you know I see you, as sweet as you are. I see you as the perfect child of Tao. Did you see the man who served your meal while we were away? Well, of course, I see him. He was complaining about his paltry wages, profaning his employer all the while. I told him that he should see the positive side of his employer, not the negative. Then you responded to the scene at hand? Mary asked. Well, of course I did, dearie. I just told you what I said. Did you do more? Mary asked. There was no greater gift I could have given that poor man than setting him on the positive, uplifting course. That was a wonderful gift, Mary said, but Master Han at the pond tells us there is more than that to do. Good for Master Han, said the magistrate haughtily, turning to leave. Don't you wish to know what it is? The lady asked. I never ask questions, the magistrate said curtly. I am not interested in the illusory scene at hand. Do you visit your banker? Asked the soldier. He comes to me, my friend, the magistrate answered from under his golden wrappings. The mountain comes to me, you see. I have dominion. That is why I am the magistrate of absolutey. So ended the second visit with How Boo How. At the pond, Han asked if the three had perceived any differences yet. They had, but they were not sure precisely what. Then visit again, Han said. The third visit with the magistrate of absolutey. As before, the students were admitted to the magistrate's room, but warned that no argument or dissension would be permitted. Did we argue? Asked Li. I thought we pursued questions, the soldier said. Master Han said that many metaphysicians call it an argument when one doesn't agree with them. Magistrate How Boo How was wheeled into the small room. He smiled at the group. We hope everything has been fine with you, Li said tremulously, feeling intimidated. Everything is perfect. There is nothing but God going on. There is nothing but good, nothing but love, said How Boo How, beaming from under his headdress. What is love? Asked Mary. I am love. I am love itself. I am nothing but love, the magistrate answered quickly and confidently. I begin with love and I stay with love, and so shall all of you. How do you know we don't? Asked the soldier. If your view of me just a figure of speech, my friend, I don't see you as anything but love either, said the magistrate of absolutely. How does love act? Mary asked. As love, of course. Love acts as God acts. I act as God acts, and so should you. If God is all in all, there is no other action going on but God's self-action, is there? The soldier asked. You are correct, my soldier. Tell me, what have you done about the war in Afghanistan? The soldier asked abruptly. The magistrate looked at the soldier incredulously. He hesitated, as he rarely did. What do you mean, what am I doing about the war in Afghanistan? What kind of a question is that? The magistrate had asked his first question. I mean, what are you doing about warfare in the world? The soldier explained. There appear to be people at war all over the earth. I know the appearing is an unreal illusion, and that an illusion is an illusion. So I wonder, what are you doing about the illusion of warfare, or of poverty, or of terrorism, or of sin, sickness, and death? But specifically, I really want to know what you are doing about the starving people of the world. Oh, my goodness, my man, the magistrate began, a sound of patronage in his voice. I live in another world entirely. Don't you know you are asking questions about empty, meaningless things? Do you not yet understand that your friend Jesus said that he was not of this world of illusion? Don't you realize that he told us not to have anything to do with this world? The soldier smiled. That same man asked us to go out into the illusory world and do whatever we can for it. I am asking you what you are doing for this world. My argumentative friend, I am being the being that being is being. What are you being? I am being that too, friend How Boo How. What else can I be? But I am doing something for the illusion. What are you doing for the illusion? I am denying the reality of the illusion, my upstart friend, and you should be doing the same thing. I am, the soldier said quietly, and more. What are you doing for the illusion besides denying it? Absolutely nothing. I don't have to work for an illusion. There is nothing to be done for an illusion. There is nothing to heal. There has never been anything to heal. God is all, and God is good, and God is perfect, and God doesn't need to be healed. Ah, so, Magistrate How Boo How, you have answered our questions. Now we know why Han wanted us to visit you. The world is a powerless illusion, the man swathed in his headbands and roared on, unaware that his visitors were leaving. I am living the beingness of God. You should live the beingness of God too, my three argumentative friends. What am I doing about the starving Ethiopians indeed? I am not making a reality of nothing, for one thing, and neither should you. Yes, but we all live in nothing's house and eat nothing's food, don't we? Mary said softly. How Boo How is talking about the allness of God, but not living it. Mary's words were unheard by the magistrate. At the pond, Han asked, Have you found a difference? Yes, friend Han, we have found a great difference. The difference between talking about love in the world and living love in the world. Ah, so, said the master of Kwangsei province. Next, you will find the child within. That is the wonder of wonders. That is the one who works marvels in this world and the next. That is the one who lives eternally, giving more to his world than words. The Zen trap, the Taoist trap, the absolutist trap, the semantic games of subjectivism. Nothing is more ridiculous than a theological argument among theologians, especially if they use a common book to support their differences and can't even agree on exactly which verses to use, nor on how to interpret the ones they do use. Ah, but nothing is more absurd or funny than an argument among metaphysicians. The reason for the absolute absurdity lies in the fact that metaphysicians argue about things they say don't exist and can't happen. The danger of metaphysics, and perhaps the reason the rabbis of old discouraged the study of subjectivism, is that one can easily entrap himself in his own semantic game and begin believing himself and his words. Metaphysicians who have discovered the inner nature of things are, sooner or later, brought to express that knowledge to others, if only because others see their light and come asking questions. One can spot the metaphysician who is entrapped at the absolute level because he has stopped asking questions. He has begun believing he must find every answer within his own objective-subjective head, so to speak. He denies the outside, calling it illusion. The metaphysician, old or new, finds that his subjective words have quantum power in his experience, compared to the former use of those same words out there in the world. Right there, the unwary metaphysician, establishing the God is absolutely all position, spends the rest of his life explaining and trying to understand that position, and, without realizing it, never moves beyond it. He may even hold to the lordly place, telling of the simplicity of allness and the inability of words to capture his thoughts, all the way to his seeming grave. But he stays right there at the semantic bend of the river, content to see himself able to joust verbally with others and hold his own. From that point, unless the subjectivist is willing to move on, he measures his progress not by new insights and new light of the absolute, but by his ability to hold to that all is God, God is all, or whatever else position. I am God and not man, he proclaims against the greatest odds, enjoying the battle. This is the Zen trap, the Taoist master's trap, the absolutist trap. While it is absolutely necessary that we come to this correct conclusion, God is, indeed, all in all, we are expected to go beyond it. It is a mountain. It is not a mountain. It is a mountain again. The subjectivist, who has not recognized the third position, can't get there by merely claiming to be there. But there is something beyond. The child within us is beyond. The child within us remains unacknowledged and undiscovered by the Zen advocate, the non-dualist subjective or Taoist. Nothing is beyond infinity, says the absolutist. God is beyond infinity to infinity. The child I am is beyond infinity. For goodness sake, even experimental mathematics is beyond infinity. If science can get beyond infinity, why can't we? We can. Nothing is beyond all, says the absolutist. God is beyond all, or any other concept. The child I am is beyond all. See the trap that semantics can become, said Han, the old master of Kwang-se. See that trap and go beyond that trap. But one doesn't go beyond it without working his way through it. That is the hard part. That is the Zen of the matter. That is also why we get busy and get going and get beyond the glib flow of words that settles nothing out there in the world and frequently misleads others. Leave the endless talking to entrenched metaphysicians and theologians. We begin the doing. We complete the interface. The paradox that so baffles us at the metaphysical and transcendental level is that the interface of doing requires the concomitant use of words that don't matter. Try to get a metaphysician to do anything for the world, and he'll tell you every time, there is no world to illumine or instruct. There is no world to heal. Those words are only half the truth. But at least they are half the truth, halfway up the mountain. Indeed, we get our subjectivism correct, that only God is happening. Then we put our knowledge to work in the illusory scene. The world is a perfect vessel, and whosoever tries to alter it spoils it. Laotse, 500 BC. The view that there is no world to heal and no persons to instruct is a perfect view, almost. But there is a view beyond that view, as the real masters have told, including Laotse, Jesus, and many others. The greater view simply hasn't been widely seen yet. Oh, yes? What? The minister, metaphysician, and philosopher asked in unison. There is a world to be understood rather than denied. When it is understood, we understand the reasons for the illusion of a world in need of healing. Nothing is done for this world of illusion by the view that there is no world to heal nor persons to illumine. If the absolute view of metaphysics really worked, the elusive world would not appear to be on the brink of a common disaster in every field of human experience. To arrive at the near final conclusion that the world is all right, despite the tenacious claims and holds of world belief to the contrary, is a wonderful and necessary second step. But truth is an ongoing revelation that ultimately tells us why the appearing appears. Subjectivism without the child within is a dead thing, even as religion is. Without the child, religion and metaphysics are stillbirths in the world. The final light from the third step, the step beyond metaphysics, tells us what we are to do for the illusion. When we know this, we set out to do it. And until we do that, we haven't done anything. To paraphrase the enlightened Zen saying once more, mountain, not a mountain, mountain again. First, there is a world to heal and many ignorant people to be instructed. Then we see there is no world to heal, no persons to be illumined, and finally, the world is understood for why it appears, and our real action begins, with much for us to do in each position. Those are the apparent steps along the way up the mountain of Dashan. The minister often bogs down at the first step, the absolutist most certainly in the second. The illumined are those who have continued to move on and have found the child within themselves. The child is the third step, and those who have found it are already gathering into a joyful new community, preparing the way for mankind's recognition of the child within every man. Messiah. This community spans the universe in a sweet camaraderie of simplicity and childlikeness. But let the reader understand, the child within us can be acknowledged and found anywhere along the objective or subjective way, within religion or outside of it. We do not forsake either science, religion, or metaphysics, or the world. Rather, we understand them and include them to infinity, perceiving whatever is real of their activities and truth. The child within does this for us. Whoever and whenever the child enters our conscious recognition, that one takes us quickly through the objective, subjective, male, female, first, last, above and below steps, without ignoring or ridiculing them, and brings us to a marvelous balance and a unitive knowledge of Godhead. In that balance, where the marvelous equation is learned and lived, we live our subjectivism in the objective experience, accomplishing wonders, and mankind doesn't even see us doing it. The first step laughs at the second. The second step holds itself mightily and superior, doing nothing in the world that it calls an illusion. The second step deceives the elect and denies both the first and third steps with all the vigor it possesses. Religion and metaphysics without the child neither eat the oats they profess nor allow the world to. But the child is the third step and includes the lesser steps to infinity. The child within leads the way to Godhead here at hand. Han and Mary were talking at the pond. Friend Han, you have said that the subjective, metaphysical view of the perfect world is only half the truth. What is the other half? The objective truth, answered Han. And those two are the whole truth? Asked Mary. Oh no, Han said emphatically. Godhead and its selfhood, the child, are the whole truth. They are much greater than the sum of their parts. The soldier said, the subjective view of the second step seems to be diametrically opposed to the objective view of the first step. How can these two contraries exist side by side? They are like positive and negative. Shouldn't they neutralize one another, like matter and antimatter? In the world, people think they do, the old man smiled. But here we appear to be sitting in an objective world, talking to ourselves at the pond, and yet we sit here talking of subjective things. Therefore, I see that my subjective idea does not neutralize nor eliminate my objective world, even though there are times I would like mightily for it to turn the picture around completely. But when I found the child within myself, and so much closer to me than I had ever thought of God being, closer than any concept of an ever-present being, the child showed me how to live my subjectivism objectively right here in the world of appearances. When I learned this, my world came alive. I speak of these unfoldments as happening sequentially, as 3 steps, but that is only a concession to time and words that a linear world demands. The 3 steps are happening simultaneously in non-time for all of us within one omnidimensional Godhead. The non-day of non-time will arrive in this linear sense of things as the masters and prophets have declared, and then I shall see as I am seen. Hans smiled with a firm countenance and eyes ablaze. He asked, Meanwhile, as long as I appear to be here in this linear sense of things, I will continue to do everything I can do for my world and for the images of myself I see within it. I shall not stop short with religion alone. I will not withdraw in arrogance and blindness in the subjective world of my own viewing. I shall do for my world as long as I can. I will run as long as I can run and walk as long as I can walk. And then I will crawl on my knees if I can. But as long as I am here and now, I am here for God's divine purpose. That purpose is not without action to help men find what I have found and do what I have done. A thoughtful silence followed at the pond. Does that answer your questions? Han asked the soldier. Yes, my God, yes, the soldier said. The bridge. As one approaches the bridge, he is concerned with the difficulties that beset him on the side where he stands. While he is on the bridge, he is conscious of the troubles he is leaving behind. When he reaches the other side, he is intrigued with the new land and quickly forgets the troubles behind. The wise man knows the value of the mental bridge, the progression, and how to lead the weary across it. Talk of the other side is cheap, and fools many, but directions that point to the bridge and across it are invaluable and rare. Our journal records the directions we take and have taken, allowing us to help others in precise words that reach beyond the sterile, antiseptic generalizations of religion and metaphysics. In this action, our science, religion, and metaphysics come together, and the three are one. Related papers 60 to 63. The love letter overtones. There are those among us who think that unless we go around thinking about our job, our mission, our discipline all day, that we are not doing our duty. I remember a time when I put rubber bands around my arm to keep me God mindful, as though I were a separate being with a mind of my own to bring into line. There are those also who think they can't possibly pray without ceasing, as the Bible adjures. The following illustration is an eye-opener for those folks. It will also be a help to discourage journal tenders who think they can't write or that they have nothing to say. Imagine a young man busy at his desk writing a letter to a young lady of his dreams, asking her to marry him. Imagine the intensity of this work, the most important letter of his life. He has decided, after much thought, the letter is the best way to do it. Why? Because the letter will say exactly what he wants it to say, just as many times as she reads it. But he could say it out loud only once, and not half as thoughtfully. I think our man feels the lady may need a bit of persuading. Now, as our friend sits there writing, his boss comes in and sees him busily engaged in writing an important letter. The boss understands and permits it. Question: does our friend see the boss come into the room? Of course. He speaks to his employer with a crisp "good morning" and goes on with his letter. Because every word is important, he tries 20 beginnings before he selects just the one he wants. My dearest Susan, when the coffee break time comes, he works right through it. When lunchtime arrives, he hurriedly puts the letter in a drawer and heads for the elevator. As he walks up the busy street to the cafeteria, he passes store windows that are ordinarily an invitation to investigate. He sees them, but this time he walks on. On the street corner, he passes a heated argument that would ordinarily stop him, but he walks on. He is not unconscious of the shop windows or the argument, but he simply has more important things on his mind. He is, to use my expression, in the writing mode of mentation. At the cafeteria, he walks down the line, quickly selects his food, and finds an empty table. In a few minutes, a friend stops and sits with him. They converse as usual, but the thing most on the young man's mind is the half-written letter in his desk. That fateful letter can mean so much. Soon he is back at his desk and at work. The matter in his head is still the letter and what he hopes it will accomplish. Our friend does whatever work is required of him on this particular afternoon, but the letter is physically before him whenever possible, and finally, at the work day ends, the letter is finished, tucked into an envelope, and taken to the corner mailbox. The matter isn't finished yet. That night, in front of the television set, the young man thinks about the reception his words may have when the letter arrives and what the response might be. He calculates the day of the letter's arrival and how she will open and read it. He anticipates her response. He watches his favorite television show, but he is still mindful of the letter. His dreams are a pleasant turmoil. I present this little story about the love letter in connection with journal tending. The connections and parallels are identical in many ways, but not in all ways. We don't have to worry about how well we write in the journal. It's just important that we get ourselves into the journal mode of writing because it is the journal mode that allows us to be receptive to the glimpses and glimmers of the light of life. The mode of thought is important, not what we write in our journals and letters. But the writing improves and flows as the mode opens us to more light, and we are introduced to paradox. More about paradox in other places. Question: was the young lover in the mode before he sat down to write? Yes, yes, yes. That's why he sat down to write the letter. He thought about it for weeks before he actually wrote it. The mode preceded the writing for umpteen days, off and on. I discovered with my journal that the mode is with me constantly now. Consider, did the mood, stop when the young man went to lunch at the cafeteria and the letter was only half written? No, it went with him and allowed him to be in the world but not of it. He walked right past the windows that usually interested him so much and past the argument that he might have taken sides in otherwise. Did it keep him from making selections along the cafeteria line? Obviously not. Nor did it keep him from visiting with a friend who sat down. So, it is the journal mode of mentation that doesn't interfere with our worldly activities of making a living. Rather, it helps us to get through the human scene without so much hassle and without getting caught up in meaningless, sidetracking activity. Consider, did the mood end when he put his pen and typewriter aside, folded the letter, and dropped it into the mailbox? Not at all. It continued. The mood of that letter continued until something happened in his experience to confirm its reason for having been written. That night, our friend even dreamed of the letter and its recipient. Dear friends, if such an innocent thing as writing a love letter can do so much for a man of the world, how much more do you think your journal word to Godhead and seeing good in its perfect everyman might do for you? Your journal mood begins right here and now before you even pick up a pen to write a single word. You are in the moment that you begin looking for good in the images of awareness. Now, listen again carefully. It's the mode of mentation that allows the glimpses and glimmers, not necessarily what we write at all. We do not get trapped into thinking we must create the great American novel or win a Pulitzer Prize for literature before we're successful into the discipline of journal tending and its mode of mentation. The power of the journal. When one makes contact with the muse of ideas or the muse of truth, even the naked muse of sensual gratification and emptiness, it is possible to hear something inside and write it for the world outside. In my first days at journal tending, I would put myself down at the notebook and turn to a new page, or I would put a clean sheet of paper into the typewriter, take a deep breath with eyes closed, and vow to write something worthy of God. Is it important to keep a journal? Why keep a journal? Well, it can become one of the most important activities in our life. There is a synergistic power in writing. For instance, 25 years ago, I began talking about awareness, using that very word in my small experience. Now, my external word hangs on awareness as if it were a flag word to all wisdom in the human sphere of things. That word and its significance arrived in my experience as I wrote it in my journal. I began using it in conversation and eventually wrote a book about it. Now, many years later, the ideas in that book are becoming common knowledge in the world, and it all started as I sat with pencil in hand. One will notice that a glimpse comes, and if we complete the transaction, that glimpse enters our world to enlighten it. That is how it works, as it has been proven to me time and time again. Our world is subjective. It is in our hands. If anything is to happen to help our view of the world, it begins right here with us. How? As we complete the interface. We get the glimpse, we live it, tell it, give it, share it as quickly as seems sensible. And in the doing, we put ourselves in the position to receive more glimpses to give. And our world is steadily improved, awakened, seen as it really is, as life confirms our glimpses. I don't think one even begins to realize how much he can do for his world until the subjective nature of things is comprehended, at least in part. This knowledge arrives slowly, line upon line, but how it rushes in as if the floodgate has been lifted, acknowledging and confirming my willingness to give what I have been given. Throughout the day, at every turn, there is an event, a happening, that proves once again that my world is here in my hands, and if the light of life is to be seen in it, I am to be that light of life for my world. It isn't false light we try to be, as a satanic influence in the world trying to emulate the works of God. The action that brought the angel of light to be cast down. Rather, we await the glimpses and tell of them. I let the human experience of years count as nothing, and I tell only the glimpses, the real and the good and the true. That is, I'm giving my light, my glimpses and my glimmers to my world, and watching the world take that light and start listening to God. This is what the journal tending is all about. Listening to God is the mode that writing in the journal puts one into. Therein lies the value of writing and journal tending. What we write isn't half as important as the mode which the writing puts us into. In those moments, we are not caught up in the world, but are quiet and receptive. In those moments, we aren't frantically reacting to the scene, but sitting still, expectantly anticipating good, even as we write a simple statement of tenderness or beauty we have already seen. That is the mood of the writing mode. About the journal mode. What I call the journal mode is nearly, but not quite, the same mental mode we get ourselves into when we are reading metaphysical papers and studying our books, searching for light. The very mood that has us sitting back and pondering a statement, contemplating the meanings of things, is what does the good work of light's arrival in our subjective metaphysical work. And that work, as often as not, has little, if anything, to do with what's written on the page there. It's the mode, not the information. So, understand that it is the journal mode that matters, not what we write, albeit what we write often comes out of that mood. So again, we tend the journal, not to inform anyone, not to inform ourselves, but to live in the light from which our glimpses come. I can tell you, it is possible to get into this state of mind and stay there perpetually. This is to pray without ceasing. If one should wonder where tranquility is, the peace that is beyond understanding, he will find it in the contemplative mode of mentation. Journal tending and subjectivism. When one sees the world objectively and wishes to do something for that world, the best he can do ordinarily is to write a letter to the editor or write a book and hope an individual here or there will read it and heed. The odds are 1,000,000 to 1 against the world hearing and responding. But when subjectivism dawns, and one comes to perceive that all tangibility is within himself, the world is changed even as the words are written onto the paper of his journal. There, the mere knowledge that one is writing to his selfhood propels his thoughts and ideas into the external world where their validity will be confirmed. Writing and the community. Dear William, my life has become new since I started keeping a journal. I have filled 6 notebooks, but better, I have opened 100 new doors inside myself. My family and friends have taken on a new respect for my ideas because I can present them so much more courageously. My dear friend Bill, my journal time has become the most precious time of my day and my life. It is my talking to the child time when the answers to the mysteries are given. Dear Bill, thoughts clarify and expand. Answers to the most agonizing problems come. Writing does all the things that meditation did for me, and so much more. Meditation was renewing. Writing is equally renewing, but with something to show for it on the pages of my notebook. My wife tells me she hears what I'm saying now. Bill, you started me keeping a journal 20 years ago. Since then, I have taught classes and have introduced your idea to many. Dear William, can you possibly know how the muse has come to me through writing? Yes, she does, directly. Writing from the memories of childhood has opened the door to new light I didn't know existed. The meanings of memory and time have brought those golden times back again. Growing awareness comes with sitting down and being still for a time with my notebook. Dear Bill, I wrote and asked you what I was to do with all the things I've written. You gave me Hildy's name and asked that I write. She and I have become the closest friends. I live for her letters, and this Christmas we are planning to visit. It will be the first time in years I have had anyone to enjoy Christmas with. William, you told me about the man who lived alone in the mountains of Tennessee. We exchanged letters telling of our appreciation for truth. I have introduced him to my friends here in Seattle, and I know he gets half a dozen letters every month. He writes that he isn't lonely anymore. Rachel suggested that I write to John D. I was surprised to know a doctor was interested in metaphysics. We have become good friends, and I look forward to his stories. I am continuing to keep in touch with Trudy, whom I met at Woodsong. We became immediate friends. How silly the years I wasted keeping my glimpses to myself for fear my own world wasn't ready to hear my own thoughts. Now I recognize glimpses to be immaculate perceptions. Bill, tell me what I am to do with these thoughts. I have no one to share them with. Dear friend Brian, would you mind dropping a note to Mrs. Ann K. in Spain? She says she is alone and frightened. Tell her some of the things you've told me. No fancy words are necessary for her because she reads between the lines as you do. Tell her of the courage you found after your experience and how your loss turned out to be a great gain. I am writing both Mary and Michael. I find Michael's poems beautiful and freeing. I have introduced Michael's words to Anne, and she feels as I do. Dear Reverend B., I know you are busy, but they say busy people are the ones to call on when you want something done. She, Anne, lives in a nursing home near you and is quite alone in the world. When you next feel the depression you tell me is so reoccurring and devastating in your life, will you make it a point to go by and take a gift to that lady? Any little thing you might have around that you don't need but feel she might appreciate. There is a reason for asking you to do this, and the reason is very special. I did not wait for another round with depression, but did, as you suggested, Bill, immediately, and took Anne Francis a small gift. I learned that she is from England, so well educated and without a friend here in the United States. Following letters. I have taken a radio to Anne Francis. I have discovered 2 members of Anne's family who have moved to Canada. I have informed them of her plight and encouraged them to write. They tell me they will get in touch. Anne received the tape recorder you and Rachel sent and especially enjoyed the tape of the thunderstorm. I must tell you that my son has come out of his shell completely. He has gotten over his discomfort of going with me to the nursing home and has fallen quite in love with Anne. It is the first time I have seen him show any respect for older people. We are taking Anne for long rides and are planning to house her visitors from Canada for a time during the holidays. She has met the lady that you suggested visit her and is busying herself writing of her childhood memories. I have never seen her more happy. Anne is a gifted writer, so full of wit and wisdom. Jack, my son, is beginning to keep a journal of our time with Anne. Anne passed on quietly this morning. There is a notebook of beautiful things here, which she has written for you and Rachel. She has copied an entire book that was out of print because she thought you would enjoy it too. She was very much alone in this world when you first suggested I visit her. Under her bed was a box of letters from new friends who brought excitement to her life, and she equally to theirs. Bill, my life has become so much richer because of Anne. you and Rachel, and all the others of like mind. Dear William and Rachel, I am writing a poem each morning as my gift to the world. I may be just a rag picker in the eyes of the world, but I am tending the most beautiful heaven on earth as far as I am concerned. As I do my chores in the park, I keep an eye open for someone to share my thoughts with. It is amazing how a good morning brings a smile to the face of a stranger. Of all men, I am most blessed. Dear Bill and Rachel, I have received several letters from rare and beautiful people, and I am sending them each a poem and a gift. Dear Bill, I will be meeting some of my new friends this summer, and my heart sings in gratitude. My poems are to be published. Now that I am outputting a little, I find new glimpses coming with regularity. I went for years without new inner light, and now light walks with me everywhere I go. Why was I so slow learning of this marvelous way? Rachel and William, you have introduced me to a new community of wonderful people. It is a community without leaders and without followers. We are all children, everyone equal as children of light, child people who try to walk with love and share true love with one another. I thought we were just sharing our love with one another, but when George fell ill, Mary sent me a gift of money. Susan and her husband came down from Washington to take care of my affairs, enough to meet the immediate needs. Such unselfish love. Years ago, you wrote to tell me that the truth would be just as valuable in my affairs as I valued the truth in the world. I had no idea what you meant. I thought I had given my whole life to the pursuit of truth, but learned that all I had given to my world was little more than a selfish pursuit of truth to please myself. I read constantly every book that came along, but that is as far as it went. I did not put the truth to work in the world until you suggested I get off my dead ass and start doing something for the world that was refusing to give me anything. Shocked me. I needed that slap, and now I have discovered part of the true principle of supply. I am giving a tangible value to the truth with my efforts for others and with my substance, as much as I can. There have been rewards 100 times beyond anything dreamed, in ways I never expected and still can hardly believe. I am giving smiles and good cheer to the people around me here in the retirement home. My life has turned into a blessing too big to believe. I give my glimpses, too. Mr. Samuel, how do I get into this community of correspondence? Begin a journal of your own insights and memories of the marvelous events of your life. Record your glimpses with whatever words you can. Then expect someone to appear for you to tell them to. God will take care of the rest. Dear Bill, when I withdrew from my church withdrew from me. I am getting along in years and have begun to wonder about things. Dear George, go back to church. Never. George, I know a lovely lady who says she has no one to talk the truth with. Write her. Here's her address. Dear Bill, I have gone back to church in a way I never thought I would, but it is a congregation that lives all over the country, an unseen congregation of old and young with whom I try to share my experiences and views of truth. Bill, this little group of people has come together in correspondence most amazingly. We have never met, and likely never will, but we are more intimate and more helpful to one another than any group I have ever known. Some of these people have just begun a study of subjectivism, but they have, every one, found the child of themselves, and our joy is marvelous. Yes, this is my own inner world happening. Dear Michelle, the churches do a better job of taking care of the children, the elderly, and the needy of the world than the metaphysical groups do. Churches generally tend non-members and do some work for the world. Most metaphysical groups don't even tend their own members in need, much less the strangers in another land. Look for yourself and see how many homes for the elderly or orphanages are provided by the metaphysical groups who insist that every edifice have a sign saying, God is love, or divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. Can you imagine a Christian Science practitioner working in a soup kitchen to serve starving street people? There is much profession of love from some groups, with very little living that love out in the world. Someone should tell them this. No, not really. They are my own subjective viewing, so the problem, subjectively, lies right here within me. So, what am I doing for my street people and my subjectivists who do not appear to be living their love? This book is my way of doing something for my world which so often appears in human, tangible need. This effort is my effort to put a tangible value on truth by living it with all my might. I give words when that seems important, but Rachel and I give our substance and our shelter when someone is hungry and tired. You do these things too, Michelle, and your rewards will be quantum. You will see, as I have, that if we want to see marvels happen in our own subjective experience, the action starts right here as ourself. Our viewing is loosed and unbound when we tend it as we have been admonished to. Dear Mr. Samuel, I am helping my world by refusing to see the reality of sin, sickness, and death. Your book, A Guide to Awareness and Tranquility, has given me a state of metaphysical bliss in which I have lost all consciousness of the world. However, I am faced with a personal difficulty pertaining to what the world calls health. I miss my husband so much. Dear Marie, there is a big step beyond metaphysical bliss. That is the discovery of the child within who knows what to do with that bliss. The first step to find the child within is to be conscious that the child exists. William, I have never heard of the child in all my study. You lose me when you write about the child. You are right, Marie. There is nothing in subjectivism's literature about the child or the child's way to live in the world. It is supposed to be that way, I think. There is nothing in the symphony about how to read the music on the printed page. The symphony merely makes the notes readable. The child and the equation require our doing, acting, being, living, beyond mere reading, talking, and professing. Yes, there is a step beyond reading holy books. Living them comes next. About love and the flow. If we intend to reach the top of the mountain, it is essential that we let go our inhibitions concerning love for our fellow man. This isn't to say that we let go our restraints concerning sexual activities and become libidinous, trying to love everyone sexually without restraint. This is a charge historically leveled against those of us who advocate that we love our neighbors without inhibition, the accusers suspecting or believing they will see their own desires fulfilled in our actions. We love without spiritual restraint. Why? Because others are our image carried to all possibilities. As alphabet, I can love all the letters. As a specific letter, I can look outside my letter self and love the other letters, knowing we all have alphabet in common, knowing we all live and move and have our being within the alphabet I am. But the metaphysician and mystic are prone to equate alphabet with God. The ineffable is beyond alphabet, more than alphabet, the basis for this awareness which alphabet is. As alphabet, awareness looks one day down the spiral and perceives the countless letters of itself. It sees them making groups of words bound together into sentences, paragraphs, and books and ideas. There is no power there, but there is authority in the alphabet awareness that observes the letters. This observation is the downward spiral, as I put it. Not downward in the sense of wrong or incorrect or not preferred, but only the outward look as it spirals into more of itself, more of itself, to infinity. This love of the image reproduces the image of the lover, the object of its love, neither good nor bad. As alphabet looks the other way, upward, to the ineffable and unknown but to itself, alphabet sees nothing tangible and uninhibitedly loves that ineffable beyond seeing as the source of awareness. That upward spiral allows alphabet to feel the immeasurable love of the infinite, which loves awareness as its own self-perceiving, disclosing self to self. This upward spiral culminates not in the birth of images, but in the rebirth of the adored child within. This birthing comes as an enrapment most poignant and sweet. We feel as the original child self of us. Oh, it is powerful and real, this feeling. This love of God for me allows me to love the images of myself to infinity. I do not, must not interrupt this flow. I let love given to me flow into all others. All others flow into me, and I give that adoration to Source. I do not, must not interrupt that flow. I keep nothing for myself, but give it to Godhead from whence it came. The joy given to me is passed along to my others. Their joy is passed to Godhead, and I am the flowing between. That between lies in the bosom of an adoring, loving God. Do you see? The feeling I feel is God adoring me. The feeling I give to myself and others is God adoring me. The feeling others give to me is God's adoring love for me. The feelings I give to God are God's love reflected by my actions and adoration for God and mankind. So, where does sex fit into this, Sam? My glands are overpowering me. My son's glands are about to overpower all the women in the neighborhood. What do I tell my son about love? What do I do with this powerful urge to make physical love to all the people on earth now that I have found the virile child of myself? My friend, you listen and hear what was just said about feeling. Really hear it and listen. Chief among the things that one does not do is use God's love as an excuse to justify sex with anyone and everyone who walks into view. But Sam, my subjective selfhood is beyond the moral laws of society. I am a law unto myself. I can find those very words in many places, including the Bible. Anyway, if love doesn't justify sex, what does? You make a good point, old friend. Just so it is love for God that determines our sexual pursuits and not the human desire to enjoy the body's orgasm. That desire is what the glandular pursuit is about, and it culminates in an itch scratched for a few minutes and another image on the scene. The upward spiral of adoration culminates in the inner child's return. The child's unrequited love for all mankind pushes us to new levels of accomplishment in the world. When the child reawakens within us, it holds rein on the sexual pursuits intended to make a conquest of another. The enlivening love which the child feels is from God and from man, to God and to man. It transcends sexual feelings as alphabet transcends a line of verse. The verse may be beautiful, but the alphabet contains all verses to infinity. As the child atop the mountain, I am the point of the flow. It flows through me to everyone. It returns through me to Godhead. I be that point steadfastly and feel the love which God is. God is love. The mysticism of journal tending, a special word to writers about understanding. Words can be deceivers. Words are man-made symbols of symbols. One may turn from the word to the symbol, or from the symbol to the word, and find himself one step closer to reality. Then he looks behind the symbol or the word, and there it is, arriving as a glimpse of light. From the glimpse, we see the world from Zen's final position and see the symbol in the new light. To find it changed or somehow different, which means whatever words, symbols of symbols we write now will be different from those written before we first turned from the symbol to the symbol. The words we write become clearer and simpler because they are a distillate from our earlier intellectual confusion and indecision. This is why, with glimpses, I am able to say more every day and write more now than I ever dreamed possible. This more may be less in numbers of words because, being the distillate, it is to the point and easy to comprehend by the heart of mankind. It goes to the heart of the matter directly, whether the intellect comprehends or not. The child is enlivened. Oh, there is certain to be the usual intellectual argument within myself, especially if the words are poorly written. If one doesn't want argument in the world, his words should make sense to the intellectual view. And one should not want argument. Argument may shake the intellect, but it doesn't explain it or lessen it. Contrariwise, argument brings the intellect to use all excuses to maintain its old position and justify its cherished existence as the human authority. The intellect rises no higher than the intellect. Its domain is the tangible world. Like Herod, it slaughters whatever threatens it or doesn't compute intellectually. So, we get our words to make sense as much as possible, and then let intellectualism rail as it likes, while we remain true to the glimpse and heed the heart's vista of truth. The heart knows, and in the end, prevails. We read correct words expecting heart confirmation. Confirmation comes with healing on its wings. Then we turn from the symbol of the symbols to reinterpret the world. The world is a step closer. We hear ourselves saying, "As I be lifted into new glimpses of light, the world I see is lifted likewise." To say this another way, I have learned to address the heart of those with whom I talk, using the intellect's own rules to do it, thereby avoiding any unnecessary argument with ego and arrogance. I speak to the child that's there before me, using the child's own words. The child is all that's real. The child, the heart, is the same to me. Before the mist lifted, my words were directed to the intellect, where they could be understood by the intellect. But the intellect is capable of going no higher than the arena where words were created as symbols of things. After the mist lifted, my words were directed to the heart. With full knowledge, they must pass through the intellect, which permits only what it will. There is a good reason why we think we have insight so long before we really do. The intellectual knowledge of things isn't the full knowledge of them. But listen. Neither the intellectual understanding nor the heart's understanding is the truth itself. Truth is more yet. At some point, a point of travail for most of us, the truth beyond the limit of the intellect comes quietly onto the scene. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Lo, the scene becomes a scene. New each moment, wonderful beyond the ordinary. Let him who has ears understand what is written here before he publishes words that sound as if he knows when he doesn't. Now I know why an arrogant belief of understanding puffs us up with human satisfaction and personal pride long before understanding consciously arrives. That time of understanding before understanding is an impertinent and vainglorious time, which has been addressed in many ways in the literature of the world. This unrecognized vaingloriousness is especially deluding to those of us who fancy ourselves mirrors of the light, teachers of truth, ministers, priests, and practitioners, writers, seekers along the pathway, instruments of God, or any of the nearly infinite human absurdities we get snagged into, believing we are, in our bewitching vanity of vanities. The hooks of pride are so subtle, so evanescent and beguiling that none I know has escaped them. But these hooks are not bad either. They are ultimately understood and seen as a necessary part of the plan. They are our twisting in the wind and wreathing time, our wiggling out of the cocoon time, our me dying time. It is a terribly difficult time, but a good beyond good time. It was the time I stuck my head farthest into my own darkness, looking for light there, but finding anguish instead. But fortunately, these were the times I intuitively knew to disappear from the human scene and write to no one but God. Thank God for that. Of all times, the mirage in the wilderness time is not the time to spew words into the ears of one's others or into print. Pity the minister who feels obligated to speak to his congregation twice a week. Look at the travesties pouring from the printers and presses, subjectively all my own echoes of me-sense, talking when I could have been listening. The real vision just beyond my arrogance, seen through the me-sense darkly. The question comes, are these words any different? Yes, yes, but I can't make anyone out there believe this. We let the heart tell us whether or not there is authority behind the words on these pages or any others. Certainly, Samuel is not the authority of honesty. Authority lies with the life who looks and listens to catch the truth's glimpses. Here a little, there a little. The trees in the field minister with straightforward, unpretentious honesty. So must we. Father, keep the me sense and its self-righteous search for truth silent and subdued. Sound the melody beyond the echoing canyons. In the contriteness of me, the me sense still, let me hear the morning stars singing. Then, Father of light, help me sing as I should, giving the melody to the wind. These words mark a measure of the song I hear today and of the joy I'm blessed to feel. Only God knows what words will be written tomorrow.